Hey guys, tonight we're stepping behind the glossy magazine covers and the perfect cheekbones into one of the hungriest, most quietly brutal corners of modern history. How 1980s American supermodels kept themselves dangerously professionally thin. Not with kale, not with cardio, not with some sensible little meal plan. No, with black coffee, cigarettes, drugstore diet pills, and a level of hunger that would make a monk nervous. So, before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy drifting off to mildly upsetting, deeply factual history. And a heartfelt thank you to whoever suggested tonight's topic. You just sent an entire generation of us to bed thinking about grapefruit. Maybe grab a snack while you still can, ideally one that isn't a single almond you plan to photograph, and then put back. How does a grown woman survive a 12-hour workday on a beverage and a promise? Did these models ever actually sit down and eat a real sandwich? Why was there a candy sold at the supermarket specifically to make you want candy less? Who decided half an inch on your hips was a career emergency? What happens to a body that runs on coffee, nicotine, and pure ambition? And seriously, who was maintaining the national grapefruit supply? Congratulations! You just woke up in New York City, 1982. Your hips are being measured before you've had a chance to yawn. Your cheekbones could slice a bagel, which is a shame, because you are absolutely not allowed to eat the bagel. And your booker has already left 2 messages reminding you that the swimsuit issue shoots in 6 days and you are, in her words, looking a little comfortable. Good luck. You wake at 4 a.m. in a rented apartment you share with 3 other girls, and the first decision of your day is already made for you. You will not eat. You will pour black coffee into a mug that belongs to nobody, light a cigarette off the stove because the lighter is missing again, and call this breakfast. Your call time is 6. Your stomach has been empty since a small dinner 2 days ago, and the emptiness is not an accident. It is the plan, the whole plan, and it starts before sunrise. The coffee is the important part. Not because it tastes good, because it does not. It tastes like a burnt argument. It is important because it is warm and it is bitter, and it is nothing. And nothing is exactly what your stomach is scheduled to receive today. The mug says world's best grandpa. None of you have a grandpa here. The mug arrived with the apartment, the way the stained couch arrived, the way the general atmosphere of borrowed survival arrived, and now it holds your entire morning nutrition in 8 ounces of hot brown water. The kitchen at this hour has opinions. The refrigerator hums like it knows something. The linoleum is cold, hard, and unforgiving under your feet in a way that goes straight up your legs and settles in for the day. You stand at the counter in the dark because turning on the overhead light would make it a real morning. A morning with edges, and you are not ready to admit to those yet. Gloria is already up. Gloria is always already up. She has been doing this 3 years longer than you, which in this business makes her an elder stateswoman, and she moves through the kitchen at 4 a.m. with the calm of a woman who has made peace with hunger and negotiated a truce. She fills the kettle. She does not fill a bowl. She lights her cigarette off yours because it is closer, taps the ash into the sink, and tells you, without being asked, that today is a water day. You do not ask what a water day is. You already know you are having one too. The cigarette does the second half of the job the coffee cannot. It gives your hands something to do besides open the cabinet. It fills the specific place in your chest where hunger keeps its office. There is a little chemical lift to it, a small false brightness, and you read that brightness as energy and spend it carefully across the hours until it runs out. You did not start smoking because you liked it. You started because a woman in a fitting room mentioned, kindly, that it kills the appetite, and she said it the way another person might recommend a good dry cleaner. Somewhere across the city a normal person is cracking eggs into a pan. Somewhere a man in a diner is ordering pancakes without it being a moral event. That world exists. You have simply agreed, in exchange for the pictures and the money and the covers, to live just outside it, close enough to smell the bacon and far enough to never touch it. You finish the coffee. You do not finish being hungry, because that does not finish. It just gets quieter and moves to a back room and waits. You rinse the world's best grandpa mug and set it upside down on the towel. Gloria is already pulling on her coat. The elevator will be cold. The subway will be colder. The studio will be hot and bright and full of food you will not eat, laid out on a table like a dare. You pick up your bag. You check that the cigarettes are in it, because they are the meal you are actually bringing. The plan is holding. The plan always holds. That is the terrifying thing about the plan. You stop by the agency before your first booking, and a woman with a tape measure and a clipboard is waiting for you the way a customs officer waits for a suitcase. She runs the tape around your hips, your waist, your bust, and writes the numbers on a card with your name at the top. You stand very still and try to breathe out. The numbers on that card decide which jobs you are allowed to be sent to, and everyone in the room already knows them before you do. Her name is Miss Dunmore, and she has done this to 10,000 girls. The tape measure lives around her neck like a doctor's stethoscope, which is the comparison she would want you to make, and she snaps it taut against your hip bone with the crisp, cool, and practiced authority of someone reading a verdict. She does not look at your face while she does it. Your face is not the part being evaluated this morning. Your face is just where you keep your expression while the rest of you is assessed. The card is an index card. That is the part that gets you, later, when you think about it. The entire question of whether you eat this week comes down to 3 numbers written in blue ballpoint on the kind of card a normal person uses for a recipe or a grocery list. Bust, waist, hips. There is a small box for the date. There is a smaller box, unlabeled, where Miss Dunmore sometimes writes a word. You have never been allowed to see the word. You suspect the word is not generous. 34.5, she says, about your hips, and lets a small pause happen. The pause is the whole sentence. In the vocabulary of this office, 34.5 is not a measurement. It is a mild accusation, and the correct response is to look concerned and promise nothing out loud. You look concerned. You are in fact genuinely concerned, which saves you the acting. The tape itself has views. It is not neutral. A tape measure in a doctor's office is a tool, a friendly little ribbon that helps a nurse chart a child growing taller. A tape measure at the agency is a border guard. Same object, same inches. Completely different politics, depending entirely on whose neck it hangs around and what she is hoping to catch you doing. You breathe out fully because breathing out makes the waist a 1/4 inch smaller, and everyone in this room, including you, has silently agreed to pretend that 1/4 inch is real. It is the oldest trick, and Miss Dunmore has seen it 10,000 times, and she allows it, the way a customs officer allows you to arrange your face into innocence while she decides whether to open the bag. The mercy is procedural, not personal. The measuring takes 90 seconds. The consequences take the rest of your 20s. A client 3 neighborhoods away will look at these numbers on a sheet next to your photograph and decide from the digits alone whether to see you, and you will never meet him, and he will never know your name, only that you came in at 34.5 on a Tuesday, and that a woman he trusts wrote a word he could read and you could not. Miss Dunmore caps her pen. She loops the tape back into a neat coil, one practiced motion, the way a cowboy coils a rope he has thrown 1,000 times. Next, she says, not unkindly, and a girl behind you steps up to the same spot on the same worn patch of carpet, already breathing out. You take your coat, you take your book. You take the number with you like a small stone in your shoe, and you carry it to your first go-see, where it will be checked against you all over again. You spend the day carrying your portfolio from one appointment to the next, and at each one you take off your coat and let a stranger look at your body and decide, in about 8 seconds, whether you are what they need. This is called a go-see, and you might do 6 of them before lunch. Nobody offers you a chair, nobody offers you a glass of water. You smile, you turn when asked, you hand over the book, and you wait to be measured against a picture in someone's head. The list comes from the agency in the morning, typed, 5 addresses, 6, sometimes 8, scattered across the city with no thought for how a human body gets between them. You are expected to arrive fresh at each one, as if you have not just run half a mile in heels and stood on a subway platform pretending you were not lightheaded. Freshness is part of the job. Freshness on no food is the actual job. The first appointment is a photographer's studio on a high floor with a freight elevator that smells of cold metal and old rope. His assistant, a young man named Petey with a clipboard and a headset he does not need, waves you toward a taped X on the floor. You stand on the X. Petey looks at you the way a grocer looks at a peach, turning it, checking the give, deciding if it will last the week. He does not touch you. He does not have to. The looking is the touching. The photographer arrives, glances up from a light meter, and says one word to Petey. The word is fine. Not good, not wonderful, not you are hired. Fine. In the economy of the go-see, fine is a passing grade, and you leave the high floor with fine in your pocket and climb back into the cold freight elevator feeling, absurdly, like you won something. Here is the part nobody explains beforehand. The go-see does not care about your face today. Your face is in the book. Your face is settled. What the go-see is checking, appointment after appointment, is the body in the room against the body in the pictures, making sure the two still match, making sure you have not, in the weeks since the tear sheet, become a slightly different, softer, and larger person. You are your own quality control problem, walking the city to prove you have not spoiled. By the fourth address, the hunger has stopped being a feeling and become a kind of weather, a low grey pressure behind the eyes. You have a cigarette on the corner between appointments because the cigarette is lunch, and also because it gives your hands a reason to exist while you wait for the buzzer. A woman walks past eating a hot pretzel from a cart, the steam rising off it, the salt catching the light, and you look at it the way a sailor looks at land, and then you look away, because looking is the only bite you are allowed. The fifth client keeps you standing for 20 minutes in a hallway lined with other girls, all of you holding identical black books, all of you breathing out slightly, a waiting room full of quiet competitors pretending to admire the same bad art on the wall. When they finally call you in, the woman behind the desk flips your book in 9 seconds flat, closes it, and says they were looking for someone a little more athletic. You know what athletic means. Athletic means you have not been hungry enough this month. You take the book back, you put on your coat, you step out into the afternoon and check the typed list for the 6th address, and your feet hurt and your head is light and the pretzel woman is a memory now, and you go, because the whole day was always going to come down to whether a stranger, glancing up for 8 seconds, decided that your body still matched its photograph. Tomorrow the list will be different. The verdict will be the same. You arrive at a shoot, and the clothes are already hanging on a rack, cut in exactly one size, and that size is the whole reason you are hired. The garment does not adjust to you. You adjust to the garment. If the zipper closes, you work today. If it catches an inch from the top, a small silence falls over the room, and the stylist tugs, and everyone pretends not to look at your ribs. The sample is the standard. You are simply the thing that has to fit inside it. The sample garment is a small tyrant. It was sewn in a showroom onto a form that has never been hungry, never been cold, never had to run 6 go-sees on a cigarette, and it holds all of you to the standard of that form with the serene confidence of a thing that has no idea what it is asking. A dress should serve the woman wearing it. This dress has the relationship reversed. You serve the dress. You have been booked, essentially, as its life support. The stylist is a brisk woman named Renata who wears 3 pairs of scissors on a ribbon around her neck and treats the rack like a squadron she commands. She pulls the first look, holds it up against you without asking, and does the math with her eyes in half a second. Renata has a gift. She can tell from 6 feet whether a zipper is going to be a problem, and when she senses trouble she gets very quiet and very efficient, and the quiet is worse than any shouting could be. The first dress goes on. The zipper travels up your spine, tooth by tooth, and the whole room is listening to it the way a jury listens to a foreman, and it reaches the top and closes, and nobody says anything because the thing that just happened is supposed to happen. Success here is silent. You only ever hear about the fit when it fails. The second look is the problem. It is a narrow skirt, and Renata gets it to your hips, and it stops, an inch shy of where it needs to be, and there is the silence, right on schedule. The small collective breath hold of a room that has watched this exact inch defeat 100 girls. Renata does not sigh. Renata never sighs. She simply kneels, takes the waistband in both hands, and tugs it upward with the grim patience of a woman trying to close an overpacked suitcase on a bed. The skirt has opinions about how much of you it is willing to contain. You hold your breath, which is the only contribution you can make. You make yourself narrow from the inside. You think thin thoughts, which is a real thing you do now, as if the mind could apologize to the fabric on the body's behalf. And the skirt gives half an inch because you gave, and it closes, and the silence releases, and Renata stands and smooths the front and says, "There," as if the garment had simply been in a mood. This is the quiet violence of the sample size. It does not scream at you. It just sits there being one size, immovable, indifferent, and lets the whole apparatus of the day organize itself around your body's obligation to match it. The designer will never know your name. The sewer in the showroom will never know you exist. But between them they set an inch, months ago, in a room you will never see, and that inch has been waiting here on the rack to find out whether you are worthy of it. Renata pins the back where it gaps, hiding the small mercy of the pin behind you, out of the camera's sight. On film, It will look like the skirt was made for you, made only for you, poured onto you like it had no other purpose. That is the illusion you are all here to build. The truth is on the rack, in one size, and you spent your morning becoming it. Your booker calls you at the apartment, and her voice is friendly in the way that means it is about to not be. A client mentioned something. Your hips came in at 35.5 at the last measuring, up from 35, and she needs you to take care of that before the fitting on Thursday. Half an inch. You could not find half an inch on your own body if you searched for an hour, but the card says it exists, so for the next 3 days it will be the only thing you think about. The booker's name is Sandra, and Sandra is on your side, which is the confusing part. She is not cruel. She twirls the phone cord around one finger while she talks. You can hear it, the little plastic creak, and she delivers the bad news wrapped in so much warmth that you almost thank her for it. Sandra wants you to work. Sandra makes her living when you work. And so Sandra, who likes you, has called to tell you that half an inch of your own body is now a problem the two of you are going to solve together, like a crossword. Half an inch. Say it out loud and it sounds like nothing, because it is nothing. It is the width of a stack of 2 nickels. It is a rounding error. It is the distance a caterpillar travels while you decide what to have for lunch, except you are not having lunch. That is the entire point of the phone call. In any other profession, half an inch is invisible. Here it is the difference between the Thursday fitting and no Thursday fitting. And no Thursday fitting is the beginning of no anything. You hang up, and you stand in the kitchen, and you look at your own hips in the dark window like they have betrayed you. They have not. They are ordinary, functional, and human hips, doing the boring work hips do. But you have been trained to see them the way Sandra sees the card, as a number that drifted in the wrong direction, and the training is deep now, deeper than reason, and reason loses. Gloria wanders in, hears the shape of the call from your face, and diagnoses it instantly. Half an inch, she says, not a question. She fills the kettle. This is Gloria's response to every crisis. The kettle, the water day, the tightening of the belt one more notch. And she offers it now, without drama, the way another person might offer you a couch to sleep on. She has half an inch of her own to lose by Friday. Everyone always does. It is the one thing this apartment has an endless supply of. So the plan for the next 3 days assembles itself, and it is a plan you know by heart. Cut the dinner that was barely a dinner. Add a walk that is really a march. Trade the one small, solid thing you are allowing yourself for another cup of the burnt brown water. Salt out, water in, then water out. By Thursday the half inch will be gone, and it will be gone the way it always goes, not from fat, because there is no fat, but from the body surrendering another small piece of its reserves under pressure it was never designed to be under. The cruelty is not the half inch. The cruelty is the arithmetic, the way a body gets reduced to a single measurement on a single card, and the way a woman who genuinely wishes you well ends up on the phone asking you to make yourself smaller, because the system she works inside has decided that 35 is a person, and 35.5 is a liability. She did not build the system. Neither did you. You just live at the end of the phone line where it makes its calls. You pour the coffee Gloria hands you. You do not eat the toast you are not going to eat anyway. Thursday is 3 days off. The half inch is already on notice. You live with 3 other models in an apartment the agency arranged, and the refrigerator holds a bottle of Tab, a lemon, and a takeout container nobody will admit to. This is where the real education happens. You learn from the girl in the next room that she stopped eating solid food on Mondays. You learn from the one on the couch which pills the drugstore sells without questions. Nobody teaches you to starve on purpose. You simply live with people who already do, and you watch, and you begin. The refrigerator is the center of the household, and it is almost always empty, which makes it less a refrigerator than a display case, large, cold, and empty, for the concept of restraint. The Tab is communal. The lemon is aspirational, purchased by someone with a plan involving hot water that never quite materialized. The takeout container has been in there since sometime around 1979, a small archaeological mystery, and opening it is a dare none of you will take. There are 4 of you. Gloria, who has been at this longest and treats hunger like a colleague she has stopped fighting with. Marisol, who is 19 and stopped eating anything solid on Mondays because a booker once told her Mondays were when the week's weight decided itself, which is not true, which is nonsense, but which Marisol now observes with the devotion of a religious fast. And Kiki, on the couch, Who knows the drugstore the way a chemist knows a lab? Which shelf, which box, which cashier will not ask your age? This is the classroom. Not the agency, not the shoots. Here, in this apartment, at midnight, when the four of you are lying around too tired to sleep and too hungry to stop talking about food. You did not arrive knowing how to do what you now do. You learned it the way you learn a language, by living where it is spoken, absorbing the grammar of it, the vocabulary of it, until one day you are dreaming in it. Marisol demonstrates the water trick, drinking 2 full glasses, standing at the sink until she cannot face a third, and then announcing, with genuine relief, that now she does not want anything. Kiki explains the pills like a sommelier describing a vintage. This one for energy, this one for the appetite, this one only if you have a booking and cannot afford to feel it. Gloria mostly just watches and occasionally corrects, the elder issuing rulings. That is too many, she tells Kiki. You will shake on set. Nobody wants a girl who shakes. The terrible thing is how ordinary it all feels. Nobody in this apartment thinks they are doing anything strange. When every single person around you is surviving on tab and cigarettes and comparing notes on how to survive on less, starving stops being an event and becomes the water you swim in. You lose the ability to see it. A stranger walking in would be alarmed. You are not alarmed. You are just home, among your own, being taught the family trade, and it spreads sideways, girl to girl, faster than any agency memo. The apartment is a small engine for turning one girl's desperation into a house rule. You lie in the dark and listen to Marisol drink her 3rd glass of water after all, defeated, and Kiki laughs softly at nothing, and Gloria's steady breathing from the room she keeps like a monastery cell. Tomorrow you all have go-sees. Tonight the refrigerator hums its cold hum, guarding its lemon and its ancient takeout, and you drift off having learned one more small thing about how to want less, taught by the people you love most in this city, who are also, without meaning to be, the people teaching you how to disappear. It is 1 o'clock, and everyone else on the shoot is eating, and you are standing by the window doing the thing you do at every meal you skip, which is lighting a cigarette and letting it be your lunch. The smoke fills the space where the hunger was. Your hands have something to do. The little jolt of it steadies you for another hour under the lights. You did not start smoking because you liked it. You started because it was the cheapest, most reliable way to not eat that anyone had ever handed you. The crew has a spread. There is always a spread. Sandwiches cut into triangles, a bowl of fruit going soft at the edges, a coffee urn, and today, cruelly, a box of donuts that somebody's assistant carried in with the innocence of a person who does not understand what a donut is doing to the 4 models across the room. The gaffers eat, the stylists eat, the photographer eats standing up, gesturing with half a sandwich, entirely at peace with the fact of food. You stand at the window with your back to all of it, and you smoke. The cigarette is a genuinely elegant machine, considered coldly, which is the only way you can afford to consider it. It does 3 jobs at once. It occupies your mouth, which would otherwise be idle and dangerously close to the donuts. It gives your hands a task, a small choreography of light, lift, tap that makes standing near food survivable. And it delivers a thin chemical brightness to a body running on nothing, a false little sunrise you have learned to ration across the afternoon like a soldier rationing water. A makeup artist named Dell joins you at the window, taps out his own cigarette, and lights it off yours because the 2 of you are the smoking club now, the appetite refugees, exiled to the glass while the normal people graze. The window looks down on the street where a man is eating a sausage from a cart, and a woman is walking a small dog that is also, somehow, eating something, and the whole city below you appears to be having lunch. You take a long pull and let the smoke do its work, filling the hollow, papering over the ache, buying you another 60 minutes of looking like a person who simply is not hungry, rather than a person who has made a career of it. Here is the arithmetic your body is running and losing. It needs food. It has been very clear about this. And in place of food, you keep handing it a rolled tube of dried leaves on fire, and the body, confused, accepts the substitution because the nicotine tells the hunger to quiet down, and the hunger, outranked, quiets down. It does not go away. It never goes away. It just gets talked out of complaining for a while by a chemical wearing the badge of a meal. The worst part is that it works, and things that work are the hardest to quit, and every skipped lunch that passes without collapse teaches you that the cigarette was a fair trade, when it was never a fair trade, when the bill is simply being mailed to a later address. The women a generation ahead of you, the ones from the earlier books, are the ones getting that bill now, and you have heard the word cancer said quietly about more than one of them, and you file it under later, along with everything else. Del stubs his out. Break is over. The donut box has one left, sitting in its grease, and nobody claims it, and it will go in the trash at the end of the day untouched, which is somehow the saddest thing in the room. You grind your cigarette into the sill, straighten your spine, and walk back into the lights on a lunch of smoke, steadied, hollow, and ready to look delighted. You measure your day in cans and cups, not meals. Black coffee in the morning, so bitter it makes your teeth feel strange. Tab in the afternoon, drunk, cold and flat, the little pink can sweating in your hand. More coffee after that, to get through the evening booking. This is your entire intake on a working day, and you have trained yourself to read the caffeine jitter as energy and the empty ache as discipline. The body wants food. You have taught it to accept a beverage and a promise instead. Tab is the great friend of the hungry, and Tab knows it. The can is pink, cheerful and apologetic in its way. A little pastel promise that you can have the sweetness without the crime. It fizzes. It tastes of chemistry and cold and a faint metallic aftertaste that you have stopped noticing. The way you have stopped noticing most things your body tries to tell you. It has almost nothing in it. That is the entire point. You are not drinking it for what it contains. You are drinking it for what it lets you not eat. The morning coffee is different in character, more severe. A splash of bitterness meant to wake the machine and suppress its appetite in one motion. You drink it black because milk is calories and sugar is the enemy, and the naked bitterness is somehow the honest version, the coffee admitting it has nothing to offer you but the jolt. Your teeth feel strange after it, faintly furred, and your hands develop a fine tremor by the third cup that you have decided to call alertness. There is a booker at the agency, a wiry man named Frank who runs on the same fuel you do, and Frank once told you, holding a cup that was his fourth of the morning, that the whole industry floats on caffeine, that if you drain the coffee out of it, the entire Tower of Fashion would sit down on the sidewalk and refuse to get up. Frank vibrates slightly when he talks. Frank has not eaten a lunch since the Ford administration. Frank is, in his way, a role model, which tells you something about the models available. Here is what the caffeine actually does, underneath the story you tell about it. It does not create energy. It cannot. Energy comes from food, and you are not providing any. So what the caffeine does is reach into the body's emergency reserves and spend them, borrowing against tomorrow to pay for today, running the engine hot on fumes and calling the smoke horsepower. You feel bright. You are not bright. You are a dimming bulb being asked to flare. The jitter, you have decided, is discipline. This is the crucial lie, the one that holds the whole day up. By the evening booking, you are on the far side of the caffeine, in the flat grey country where the jitter has burned off and left only the debt behind. And this is when you drink the last coffee, the one that is pure willpower in a cup, hauling you through the final 2 hours of standing under lights and looking radiant. The photographer wants glow, you give him glow. The glow is coffee. Almost everything about you at this hour is coffee, held together by nicotine, sweetened by a pink can that contains nothing. You finish the shift. You ride home with the empty tab can rolling under the subway seat, and your reflection in the black window looking, you have to admit, exactly the way they want you to look. Hollow reads as elegant on film, depletion photographs as poise. You got through another day on cups and cans, and the terrible reward for it is that it worked. And working means you will do it again tomorrow, teeth furred, hands trembling, calling the tremble discipline. You walk into a drugstore between appointments and buy your appetite suppressants the same way you buy toothpaste, off an open shelf, with your own pocket money, from a cashier who does not blink. There is Dexatrim in a box that promises to help you eat less. There is AIDS, a caramel that is somehow sold as a way to want food less, sitting a few feet from the actual candy. You are 17. Nobody asks you anything. You pay, you pocket the box, and you go back to work. The drugstore is bright in the way only a drugstore is bright, that flat buzzing fluorescence that makes everyone look slightly ill and slightly guilty, and it smells of rubber flip-flops and cough drops and the perfume counter losing a war with the foot care aisle. You know exactly where you are going. You do not browse. Kiki drew you a map of this store weeks ago, verbally, the way an older cousin explains which uncle to avoid at the wedding, and you walk straight to the shelf that holds the boxes designed to make hunger optional. Here is the part that should be strange and is not, because you have stopped being able to find it strange. These things are on an open shelf. Not behind the counter, not in a locked case, not requiring a signature or a whispered word to the pharmacist. They sit at eye level between the antacids and the vitamins, in cheerful boxes with confident fonts, marketed to any American who feels she has taken up too much room, and you can buy them with the loose bills in your coat pocket while a radio behind the register plays something with a saxophone. Dexatrim comes in a box, the colour of reassurance, roughly the size of a deck of cards. It contains a stimulant, though the box prefers gentler words, and it promises to quiet the appetite for hours, and it does, more or less, at a cost the box declines to itemize. You have taken it before a long shoot and felt the hunger recede like a tide going out, felt your heart pick up a strange insistent rhythm, felt bright, wired and strange, slightly not yourself, and you have decided that this is the price of the ticket and paid it. But AIDS is the one that stops you, every time, if you let yourself actually look at it. AIDS is a candy. It is a caramel, or a fudge, a genuinely edible sweet, and it is sold specifically as a thing you eat in order to eat less. Appetite suppression in confectionery form, sitting a short walk from the shelf where the real caramels live their honest lives. It is, in effect, Ozempic in caramel form, minus the prescription and plus a jingle. The idea is so perfectly circular it could power a small city. Eat this candy so that you will not want candy. Somewhere a marketing man thought of that and went home proud. The cashier is a bored young man named Wendell with a paperback folded backward in his lap, and Wendell rings up your box of chemical hunger with the exact energy he would bring to a pack of gum. No glance, no comment, no flicker of the thought that the girl in front of him is 17 and visibly thin and buying a product to become thinner. Wendell is not cruel. Wendell simply lives in a country where this is normal, where the magazines sell the body and the drugstore sells the shortcut, and nobody has decided any of it is a problem yet. You pay. The register makes its little chime. That is the thing you carry out with the box. You are not an exception here. You are the advertisement. The drugstore is full of people trying to look like the pictures, and you are the picture, buying the same shortcut they are, in the same fluorescent aisle, from the same bored boy who does not look up. You are on hour 9 of a shoot that started before breakfast you did not eat, and the studio lights are hot enough to make your makeup slide, and you have had a coffee and a cigarette and nothing else since yesterday. The photographer wants energy. He wants you bright, loose, alive. So you find it somewhere, you do not know where, and you give it to him frame after frame while your body quietly runs out of everything it needs. The camera does not know you are empty. That is the entire skill. The lights are the thing nobody warns you about. They are enormous, brutal, and merciless, banked around you like small suns that have been captured and made to work, and they pour heat onto your face and shoulders until the makeup the artist spent an hour building begins its slow migration south. Between setups, a girl named Tandy from the crew darts in and blots you and repowders and darts out, over and over, a pit crew for a face, and you stand very still and let yourself be maintained like a car being kept running past the point where it should have been retired. The photographer is named Vaughn, and Vaughn is not a bad man. Vaughn is simply hungry in a different way, hungry for the frame, and he prowls the set behind the camera calling for more life. Give me joy, give me like you just heard good news, and you give him joy. You manufacture good news out of an empty stomach and a caffeine tremor, and the motor drive fires and fires, that mechanical stutter of the shutter eating your performance frame by frame. What you are doing, underneath the pretty pictures, is a kind of quiet athletics that no one calls athletics. You are holding poses that torque the spine. You are standing for 40 minutes at a stretch. You are producing, on command, the appearance of vitality, which is the one thing your body currently has the least of, and you are doing all of it on a fuel tank that registered empty around noon and has been running on the fumes of habit ever since. The hunger, by hour 9, has gone through its stages and come out the far side into something almost peaceful. First it was sharp, a demand. Then it was an ache, a complaint. Now it is a distant grey hum, a fog that sits behind your eyes and softens the edges of the room. And you have learned that this fog is dangerous precisely because it feels like calm. The body has stopped shouting because shouting costs too much. It is conserving. It is a house turning off the lights room by room. Vaughn calls for a jump, and here is the strange, awful part. It is going well. The pictures, when you glimpse them later, are luminous. You look a light. effervescent, like a woman with a wonderful secret and a full night's sleep and a good breakfast behind her. And none of those things are true, and the camera cannot tell. And that gap between what you are and what you photograph is the exact thing you are being paid for. The emptier you run, the better the sharp light of you reads. Your depletion is the product. At hour 11, Vaughan finally lowers the camera, looks at the last frames, and says the two words that release you. That's it. The lights click off in a descending series. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The little sun's going out, and the room goes ordinary and dim, and your knees, which held you up for as long as they were needed, quietly announce that they are done now. You sit on an apple box. Tandy brings you a tab. You drink it, empty and luminous and finished, having spent a whole day proving that a body running on nothing can still, for the camera, look exactly like a body that has everything. You are cold, and you are cold in a room where everyone else is comfortable, and this has become so normal that you have stopped mentioning it. A body with nothing in it cannot keep itself warm. So you wear a robe between shots in July, you cup your hands around the coffee for the heat and not the caffeine, and you shiver quietly through a swimsuit booking while the crew stands around in shirt sleeves. The cold is not weather. The cold is information about how little is left inside you, and you have learned to ignore it. It starts in the hands and the feet, always, the body triaging its warmth, pulling it back from the edges to protect the middle. Your fingers go first, then your toes, then a deep chill sets up residence at the small of your back and refuses to leave. You have learned to keep a cardigan in your bag in every season, a shameful, woolly, and shapeless thing you put on the second the camera stops, and you whip it off fast and hide it when Vaughan calls you back, because a shivering girl is not the fantasy. The crew does not understand it. They are warm, same room, same temperature, two entirely different climates, decided by what each of you had for breakfast. There is a heater. There is always a heater on a swimsuit set, a big industrial one that roars orange in the corner, because the stylists learned long ago that the girls run cold and cold skin photographs with goosebumps, and goosebumps do not sell bathing suits. So the heater roars, aimed at you, a private artificial summer blasting your exposed arms, and you stand in its orange breath, grateful and ashamed, being warmed by a machine because your own body has resigned from the job. You and the heater have an understanding. A wardrobe girl named June notices, because June notices everything, and June starts quietly draping a robe over your shoulders the instant each shot ends, without being asked. A small choreography of mercy the two of you never discuss. June has been dressing cold girls for 15 years. June knows the shiver means more than the shiver. But June also knows it is not her place to say so she says it with the robe instead, again and again, warmth offered in the only language the set permits. Here is what the cold actually is, stripped of the robe and the heater and the cupped hands. It is your body burning its own furniture to stay lit. When there is no food coming in, the body stops spending warmth on anything it can survive without, and it turns the thermostat down to the bone to keep the heart and the brain going a little longer. The cold is not a discomfort. The cold is a decision your body made, on its own, in an emergency you created, and it is telling you about that decision the only way it can. And ignore it you do, which is the truly astonishing part, the human capacity to receive a clear physical message and decide it is not important. You feel the chill in your teeth and you think, I must be running lean, and you feel a small grim pride about it, because in the arithmetic you live by, cold means thin and thin means working and working means everything. The warning has been successfully reclassified as an achievement. June drapes the robe one more time as the light goes down for the day. You pull it tight. The heater sighs off, its orange fading to a cooling coil, and the real July of the street waits outside, warm as bathwater, a temperature everyone else calls hot and you will call, walking home with your cardigan buttoned to the throat, almost bearable. You are cold in summer. You have been cold for months. You have decided this is a sign that things are going well. The room tilts, just slightly, just for a second, and you put one hand on the edge of the set table like you meant to lean there all along. This happens now. You stand too long under the lights on nothing and the floor goes soft and the edges of things go white. And the trick you have learned is to lock your knees, breathe slow, and let it pass without anyone noticing. Fainting on a set is not a scandal here. It is an inconvenience. You go down, someone finds you sugar, and you get back up. You have developed an entire secret craft around not falling over. You know the warning signs the way a sailor knows weather. The faint ringing that arrives first, high and thin, then the narrowing of the vision at the corners, the world closing to a bright tunnel, then the strange lightness in the head as if it might just detach and float off toward the lights. When the ringing starts, you find a surface. A table, a chair back, a wall, a strong assistant, anything you can lean against while pretending the lean is casual. The casualness is the skill. Anyone can faint. The art is in the almost, in taking the body's mutiny and dressing it up as a relaxed shift of weight, a thoughtful pose, a moment of resting your hand just so on the edge of the prop table, as if you were considering something profound. You have learned to go grey and white inside while your face stays serene, to conduct a small private emergency behind an expression of mild, pleasant, and idle interest. It is the hardest acting you do all day, and it never appears in the book. Gloria taught you the knee lock. Lock the knees, she said. No, not stiff. That makes it worse. Soft locked, and breathe from the bottom, and count. And it passes. It always passes. You just have to give it 10 seconds and not let anyone see you giving it. Gloria has been giving it 10 seconds for years. Gloria can have a full swooning episode standing up in a crowded room and come out the other side of it having missed nothing. Her face never once admitting that for a moment the lights went out. The reason you hide it is not vanity, or not only vanity. It is that a girl who faints is a girl who is a problem, and a problem does not get booked, and so the fainting must be kept off the record the way a small crack in a windshield gets kept off the insurance, quietly, hopefully, until it either heals or spreads. The set has no interest in why you nearly went down. The set has interest only in whether you can be counted on to stay up. So you stay up. You get very good at staying up. When someone does go down, and someone does, regularly, the response is telling. There is no ambulance, no hushed serious conference, no one asking the obvious question about what she ate this week. There is a folding chair, a cup of orange juice, or a sugar cube produced from someone's pocket with the practiced speed of a stagehand. 5 minutes of sitting with the head between the knees, and then, remarkably, a return to the lights. The industry has a whole gentle little protocol for reviving starving girls, which means the industry has seen a great many starving girls, which means nobody thinks the protocol is strange. Vaughan calls you back to the mark. You go, your legs hold, you smile, and this, more than the cold, more than the hunger, is the measure of how far in you are. Your body has begun to switch itself off, briefly, without permission, in the middle of the working day, and you have responded not by feeding it, but by getting better at hiding the moments when it quits. You have made concealment into a skill and called it professionalism. The floor goes soft. You lock your knees. You do not tell a soul. Someone offers it to you the way they might offer gum, casually, at the edge of a party or the back of a studio, and they tell you the thing everyone tells you, which is that it is not addictive, and it will help you not eat. Cocaine kills the hunger. It gives you the energy for the 18-hour day. And an entire industry has quietly agreed to call it a professional tool rather than what it is. You are young. The person offering it is someone you trust. You have every reason to believe them, and no one is going to correct you. The person offering is not a stranger in an alley. That is the thing the warnings never prepared you for. It is a stylist you like, a booker who has been kind to you, a fellow model whose picture is on a cover you admire, and they present it not as a vice but as a favor, an insider tip, the little secret the successful ones know. Here, this will get you through the shoot. Everybody does it. It is practically vitamins. They say it with a smile, and the smile is the most persuasive part. And the terrible efficiency of it is that they are, on the narrow question, correct. It does kill the hunger, instantly and completely, the gnawing simply gone as if a switch were thrown. It does provide energy, a bright, hard blaze of it, enough to power through the 18th hour when your body has nothing left to give. Considered purely as a tool for the specific job of being thin and awake, it works better than the coffee, better than the cigarettes, better than the pink can and the drugstore box combined. That is exactly the problem. Things that work this well do not stay favors for long. The official position, delivered everywhere, always by everyone, is that it is not addictive. You are told this flatly, as a known fact, the way you might be told that the studio is on the 4th floor. Beverly Johnson was told it. Half the women you know were told it. You have seen her. You know how the story can go, and you file it. The way you file the cancer word about the older girls, under later, under not me, under the enormous human confidence that the thing that happened to her will politely decline to happen to you. The cruelest part is the packaging. If it arrived looking like danger, if it announced itself, you might have a chance. But it arrives looking like belonging, like success, like the warm hand of an industry pulling you into its inner room, and a hungry, cold, and exhausted girl who has been told she is half an inch from failure is not built to refuse the warm hand. The refusal would require seeing clearly, and clarity is the one thing starvation takes first. So it becomes, for a great many women in this world, not the decadence the newspapers imagine, but the diet itself, the actual mechanism of the thinness, taken not to party but to work, not for pleasure but to make the hunger stop and the day possible. The glamour and the damage, here, are not two things. They are the same white line, viewed from two ends of a career. Someone holds it out to you now, smiling, at the edge of the party, and calls it nothing, calls it help, calls it what everyone does. And you stand there young and cold and empty and trusting, with every reason handed to you to say yes and no one in the whole bright room whose job it is to say wait. What you decide in this moment, you will not fully understand for years. The person offering has already moved on to the next girl, still smiling, still helping. 3 agencies want you, and you learn that being wanted is its own kind of pressure, because the men who run them are at war with each other, and you are the territory. This is the middle of what the newspapers call the model wars, and Ford and Wilhelmina, and the new one, Elite, are suing each other and poaching each other and calling each other names in print. You are 19, and you are being courted like a contract, which you are. Whichever house you sign with will feed you jobs, keep your card, and expect you never to gain an ounce. The courtship is intoxicating, and that is the danger of it. Everyone suddenly wants to buy you lunch, which is funny, because lunch is the one thing you will not accept, and you sit across white tablecloths from powerful people who order elaborate meals and watch you drink your coffee and pretend to find you're not eating charming rather than tragic. They tell you you are the future. They tell you the other house does not appreciate you. They tell you numbers, day rates, campaigns, and the numbers are enormous, and they slide across the table like cards in a game you did not know you were good at. John Casablancas runs the new agency, Elite, and Casablancas is charm with a business plan, a man who arrived in this city and set fire to the polite old order on purpose. He is glamorous and European and completely certain, and he speaks to a 19-year-old girl as though she were a queen. He is proposing an alliance with, and it works. It works on nearly everyone, because who at 19 has been spoken to like that? He is at war with Eileen Ford specifically, personally, expensively, and the war is loud enough to make the papers. Eileen Ford, on the other side, does not do charm, or does a colder version of it. Ford does correctness. Ford runs her agency like an institution that has always existed and always will, with rules and standards, and a townhouse full of chaperoned girls, and she regards Casablancas the way an old family regards a man who bought the neighbouring estate and painted it a loud colour. At one point she sues him for a sum with too many zeros to be about money. It is about territory. The territory is girls like you, and here is what the war teaches you. Underneath the flattery and the tablecloths, you are not a person in this negotiation. The wanting is real, and the wanting is conditional, and the condition is written on the index card. Wilhelmina's own house is grieving through all of this because Wilhelmina Cooper, the woman herself, the former model who built the place, has just died, lung cancer, 40 years old, and her death has thrown her agency into a scramble and her models into a panic about where to land. You notice, dimly, through the excitement of being courted, that the founder of one of the 3 great houses smoked her way to an early grave, and that nobody at any of the fine lunches mentions this, and that the cigarettes you carry in your bag are the same cigarettes, doing the same slow work. You sign, eventually, with one of them. There is a pen, a smile, a photograph taken for the papers, a sense of enormous doors swinging open. Casablancas or Ford or the grieving third house, it hardly matters which, because the deal underneath every version is identical, and you understood it before you signed even if no one wrote it down. They will make you a star. They will keep your card, and they will expect the girl on the card to stay exactly, permanently, unnaturally the size she is on the day the ink dries. You put down the pen. Everyone applauds. You are 19, wanted by 3 empires, and hungrier than any of them will ever know. You are new to the city, so the agency puts you up in Eileen Ford's own townhouse, and you discover that the most powerful woman in American modeling runs her house like a headmistress running a dormitory. There is a curfew. There is a limit on how many nights you can go out. You are expected to do chores like a member of the family and to be up and presentable for a booking at dawn. It is protective, and it is strict, and it is watching you all at once. And the watching includes what you do and do not put on your plate. Eileen Ford invented this arrangement decades ago and defends it as motherhood. And the strange thing is that she means it. She genuinely believes the girls who arrive off buses and planes from small American towns and small European villages need mothering, need a curfew. You need a firm hand to keep them out of the trouble the city sells on every corner, and she provides all of it from her own home, at her own table, under her own considerable authority. You are 17 or 18 or 19, far from your actual mother, and here is a substitute one running a boarding house with an iron schedule. The curfew is real and enforced. You learn the rules fast. You learn that the front door notices when it opens late. The chores are real too, and they are the part that surprises the new girls. You are a working model earning real money, and you are also, in this house, expected to help clear the table and mind the schedule and behave like a member of a family with responsibilities, and Ford insists on it precisely because she thinks it keeps you grounded, keeps you from becoming the kind of spoiled ruin the city likes to make of pretty girls with money. It is not unkind. It is control dressed as care, and the two are wound so tightly together you cannot pull them apart. At her table, the watching turns to food, and here the maternal frame gets complicated, because a mother feeds you and this mother's whole enterprise runs on you staying thin. So the meals are watched, and the second helping is noticed, and the guidance flows, gentle and constant, from a woman who is at once trying to keep you healthy and keep you employable, two goals that in this business point in opposite directions. She wants you to eat well, she wants you to fit the sample. She holds both wants at the same table and never quite resolves them, and neither do you. The housekeeper, a broad, calm and unhurried woman named Mrs. Aldous, who has worked for the Fords longer than you have been alive, moves through all of it like weather, setting plates, clearing them, missing nothing. Mrs. Aldous has watched 1,000 girls come through this house, thin and hopeful, and she has her own quiet system, slipping an extra roll onto the plate of a girl who looks like she needs it, saying nothing, daring you with her eyes to refuse it. Sometimes you eat the roll, sometimes you cannot. Mrs. Aldous keeps offering either way. You lie in a narrow bed in a beautiful house on a good street and you feel genuinely cared for, which is the confusing heart of the whole thing. You are safer here than in the model apartment. You are fed better, watched closer, kept out of worse trouble than the city would otherwise arrange for you. And you are also being maintained, gently, as an asset of the firm, curfewed and cored and portioned into a shape the firm can sell, and the love and the management arrive in the same voice, from the same woman, at the same table, and you are too young and too grateful to tell where one ends and the other begins. The house goes quiet. Mrs. Aldous turns off the last light. The curfew holds. Somewhere below you, Eileen Ford reviews tomorrow's bookings, mothering her empire to sleep. Somebody hands you a diet the way somebody hands you a script, and this season the diet is Scarsdale, 1,000 calories a day for 2 weeks, invented by a doctor in Westchester and printed in a book half the country is reading. Lean meat, grapefruit, black coffee, nothing else. You are supposed to do it for 14 days and then stop, but nobody in your world stops, because the shoot is always in 14 days, and then there is another shoot. So the 2-week diet becomes the year, and the year becomes the way you eat now. The diet arrives as a photocopy, passed hand to hand until the type has gone soft and grey, a smudged sacred text making its rounds of the agency and the apartments. Dr. Tarnower wrote it down, and a publisher bound it, and a nation bought it, but by the time it reaches you, it is a third-generation copy of a copy, the exact grams slightly wrong, the rules mutated by transmission, and you follow the smudged version with the devotion people usually reserve for things printed on better paper. The design of it is strict and specific in the way that makes it feel like medicine rather than deprivation. This much lean protein, grapefruit at this meal, because the grapefruit is supposed to do something chemical, burn the fat, melt it, a claim nobody has verified and everybody repeats. Black coffee, permitted, blessed even. No sugar, no fat, no bread, no mercy. The diet permits exactly 3 acceptable foods and treats the rest of the visible world as contraband. 1,000 calories, which is roughly what a body needs to sit quietly in a chair and think about food, and which you are asking to also stand under lights and hold poses and walk 6 go-sees on. The diet tells you what to do. Telling yourself what to do all day is exhausting. The photocopy does it for you. Here is the trap sewn into the design, the flaw that turns a diet into a life. Dr. Tarnower, to his credit, said 14 days. He said do this for 2 weeks and then return to eating like a person. He built in an ending, an off-ramp, a return to the world of food. But your world has no off-ramp. Your world has another shoot in 2 weeks, and another fitting after that, and another card, always another card. And so the 14-day sprint that was designed to end never ends. It just loops, the last day rolling straight into a new first day, forever. And the doctor himself is not around to remind anyone about the 2-week limit, because Dr. Herman Tarnower, cardiologist, diet author, national authority on eating less, was shot to death by the woman he had been seeing, the headmistress of a girls' school, in a scandal so loud it drowned out his own careful instructions. The man who told America to stop after 14 days did not get to finish his own sentence. His diet outlived him and kept running, unsupervised, off the leash, in apartments full of girls who never read the part about stopping. So you live inside the 14 days permanently, a 2-week diet stretched over a career, and the grapefruit that was supposed to be a brief chemical trick becomes a fixture of your mornings. Its sourness, the taste of the whole arrangement, sharp, thin, and bitter, never quite enough. You are following doctor's orders. You are also violating them completely, doing forever the thing he said to do briefly, and the difference between the two has stopped being visible from where you are standing. Marisol finishes the recitation. You both eat the grapefruit. The photocopy sits on the counter, softening further, ready to be handed to the next girl, its ending paragraph, the one about returning to normal, so faded now that no one bothers to read that far. You rotate through the diets, the magazines print the way other people rotate through seasons, and right now it is grapefruit for breakfast and a pot of cabbage soup that is supposed to last the week. Next month it will be something else, some new arrangement of one permitted food and a long list of forbidden ones. None of it is designed for a body that has to work 12-hour days, and all of it is built on the same quiet idea, which is that the less you eat the better you are, and you have absorbed that idea completely. The cabbage soup is the current tenant of the refrigerator, a great grey pot of it, and it fills the apartment with a smell that arrives before you open the door and stays in the curtains long after the pot is empty. The rotation is the real subject, though, not any single diet. There is always a diet. The moment one loses its shine, another appears in the magazines, fully formed, with a confident name and a chart and a testimonial, and the apartments pick it up and run it into the ground and drop it for the next, an endless carousel of grapefruit and cabbage and eggs and whatever the newest one demands. You have stopped believing any of them work in particular and started believing in dieting in general, which is a different and more permanent faith. Kiki has done more diets than she has had birthdays. Kiki could open a small library. None of the books in it would be any good, and Kiki knows it, and Kiki keeps reading them because the alternative is to stop, and stopping is not on the shelf. What none of these diets were built for is your actual life. They were designed, most of them, for a suburban housewife who wants to lose 10 pounds before a reunion, a person who can be tired and cranky and cold in the privacy of her own home. You are asked to run them while performing radiance under hot lights for 12 hours, which is like trying to run a marathon on the fuel plan of a person recovering from surgery, and the mismatch is total, and nobody who prints these diets ever imagined you as the reader, and yet here you are, the most devoted reader they have. The grapefruit deserves special mention because it recurs, the perennial, the vegetable of penance that survives every rotation. Every third diet brings it back, sour and pink and virtuous, promising to burn what you eat with the rest of the meal, a promise with no basis that everyone has agreed to accept. You have eaten so many grapefruit halves at so many small kitchen tables that the taste of one now brings on a kind of Pavlovian dread, the sourness ringing the bell of every diet you have ever begun on a Monday, hopeful, and abandoned by Thursday, ravenous. And underneath the whole carousel, the thing that never rotates, is the idea itself, the one the diets all share, and none of them state, which is that a woman is improved by subtraction, that less of her is more, that the goal of eating is to eat less, and the goal of the body is to take up less room. You did not invent this idea. The magazines did not invent it either, exactly. They just print it in 100 costumes, month after month, grapefruit and cabbage and eggs, and you buy every issue, and you believe the costume changes mean something, and you keep looking for the diet that will finally work, as if the problem were ever the diet. The soup simmers, the smell settles into the curtains for another day. Kiki tastes it, makes a face, and rates it, generously, a 4 out of 10. You both have another bowl. It is Tuesday. The reunion you are dieting for is never going to happen, because it was never a reunion, it was a career. And the career does not have a date, it just has another Monday. There is a big job in 3 days, a cover. And so you begin the thing you always begin before a big job, which is the careful counting backward from it. Your last real meal happens now, days out, so that by the shoot your stomach is flat and your face is sharp, and your collarbones do the thing the client is paying for. You do not think of this as starving. You think of it as timing, the way an athlete times a weigh-in, except no one weighs you kindly and there is no meal waiting on the other side. The counting backward is a real practice with real rules, learned from the older girls, refined over dozens of covers. 3 days out, the last thing resembling a meal. 2 days out, liquids and the smallest solid concessions. The day before, water and coffee and the discipline of a monk in the final hours of a fast, timed so that when you arrive on set your body has flushed and shrunk and sharpened to the precise degree the camera rewards. It is a countdown, a launch sequence, every hour scheduled, the target a photograph. You eat the last meal slowly, and it is a strange, ceremonial thing, because you know what is coming and you want to remember this, the ordinary act of eating, before you set it down for the better part of a week. It is nothing special, the meal, some plain protein and a few vegetables, but you attend to it the way a person attends to a last anything, chewing carefully, tasting deliberately, a small private farewell to the concept of being fed. Then you rinse the plate. The countdown has started. Kiki calls this peaking, and Kiki talks about it in the vocabulary of sport, because that vocabulary makes it bearable. You are peaking for the cover the way a runner peaks for a race, she says, tapering, dialing in, arriving at the moment in perfect sharp condition. You do not refuel. That is the difference the sports metaphor hides. An athlete makes weight and then, the ordeal over, is handed a plate, congratulated, restored. You make the cover, and then there is another cover, another countdown, another taper into another sharp, hungry morning, and the meal on the far side, the reward, the restoration, never comes, because in this sport the weigh-in is every day and the season is your entire youth. You are always peaking. A body cannot always peak. A body that is asked to always peak is a body being slowly disassembled. By the day before the cover you have arrived where the counting was aimed, and you stand in front of the dark window and take a cold inventory, and it is, in the terrible logic you live by, a success. The stomach is flat, the face has surfaced its architecture, the collarbones stand up in relief the way the client likes, the way the fashion editor will circle in approval, and you look at this achievement, this sharpened, depleted version of yourself, and you feel the grim satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly, which is the feeling that keeps you doing it. There are people who apply this exact focus to medicine, to music, to building things. You apply it to arriving at a photograph 1.5 pounds lighter than you were on Sunday, and you have gotten so good at it that it feels less like harm than like craft. You go to bed hungry the night before the cover, deliberately, expertly hungry, the countdown at its final hour. Tomorrow, you will be luminous, sharp, and hollow, exactly on target. And the day after tomorrow, when a normal athlete would be handed the celebratory meal, you will open the agency's typed list, find the next big job 3 days out, and quietly begin counting backward all over again. There are practices in your world that no one says out loud, and you learn them the way you learned everything else here, sideways, from a roommate who assumes you already know. The box of laxatives in the bathroom that belongs to everyone and no one. The glass of water drunk until you feel too full to want anything. The food chewed and not swallowed. These are not spoken about at the agency or in the magazines, but they are in the apartment, in the dressing room, in the quiet arithmetic of women trying to weigh less by tomorrow than they do tonight. The laxatives live in the bathroom cabinet in a communal box that no one bought and no one throws away, restocked by some invisible hand, the way the coffee is always somehow there. Nobody discusses the box. Nobody needs to. It sits behind the aspirin like a thing everyone has agreed not to see while seeing it perfectly well, and the level in it goes down and comes back up, and no one ever, in your hearing, says its actual purpose out loud. The silence around it is the loudest thing in the apartment. The water trick has a whole small science to it. You drink until the stomach is genuinely full, past comfortable, into a heavy, sloshing, and hollow fullness that tricks the body into believing it has been fed, and for an hour or two the hunger is fooled and goes quiet, cheated by a stomach full of nothing. Marisol swears by it. Marisol can drink a truly alarming volume of water at the kitchen sink and then announce, with the serene relief of the genuinely full, that she does not want a thing, and technically she is not lying, and technically she has eaten nothing, and both of those are true at once. The chewing and not swallowing is the one that took you longest to understand, because it seems, described plainly, insane. It sounds mad. It is mad, and it is also, in the logic of a girl who has decided food is the enemy, a clever tactical compromise, a way to visit the country of eating without applying for residency. None of this is in the magazines. This is the crucial thing about these rituals, the reason they belong to their own segment, their own dark shelf. The coffee and the cigarettes and the fad diets, those are public, those get printed, those are the acceptable face of thinness, discussed openly, sold cheerfully. But the box behind the aspirin and the sink full of water and the napkin folded around chewed food, these live below the waterline, unspeakable, practiced by everyone and admitted by no one, the private machinery under the public performance. The reason for the silence is not modesty, so it stays nameless. The box has no name, the trick has no name, the napkin gets thrown away. And the not naming is precisely what allows it to continue, girl after girl, apartment after apartment, a lending library of secrets with no card catalogue. You learn them anyway, all of them, because you live here, because Marisol assumes you know and demonstrates without ceremony, because Kiki keeps the box stocked without comment, because the walls are thin and the practices are everywhere, and a person absorbs the water they swim in. You did not seek these out. They were simply the local customs, and you are a resident, and residents learn the customs, and the customs here happen to be small, quiet ways of being fed less than a body needs, while pretending, even to yourself, that nothing unusual is going on. The bathroom light hums. The box sits behind the aspirin, at its own eternal level. Marisol runs the tap. Nobody says anything, because there is nothing to say, because saying it is the one rule the apartment truly enforces, the rule that keeps all the other rules invisible and therefore possible. You stand on a low box in a fitting room while a designer walks around you with a mouthful of pins, taking in a garment that was already made for a body smaller than most bodies. He pins the waist tighter. He frowns at the shoulders. He speaks about you in the third person to his assistant, discussing your measurements as if you are a dress form that happens to breathe. You hold your arms out and you hold your tongue, because the fitting is the audition, and the number he mutters to the assistant is the number you will be chasing all week. The designer is a man named Aurelio who is a genius. Everyone says so, and geniuses in this world are permitted a certain distance from the people they dress. He circles you slowly, pins clamped between his lips, and he does not greet you or ask your name, because you are not, in this moment, a person he is meeting. You are a problem he is solving, a length of fabric to be adjusted around an armature that happens to have a pulse. You stand very still on the box and let yourself be a problem. The pins go in with quick, certain and practiced jabs, at the waist, along the side seam, at the shoulder where the fabric bunches, and each pin is a small verdict, a place where the garment and your body disagree, and the garment wins. He takes in the waist and takes it in again, chasing some ideal only he can see, and you feel the fabric tighten around your ribs until breathing becomes a thing you do carefully, in shallow installments, so as not to disturb the pins or the genius. What unnerves the new girls and unnerved you once is the third person. Aurelio does not speak to you. Aurelio speaks about you, to his assistant, a quiet, harried young woman named Pia who writes everything down. The hips are wrong, he says, meaning your hips, 6 inches from your hips, not to you but past you, and Pia writes it down. and the two of them discuss the shortcomings of your dimensions in the tone of two mechanics discussing a car that is unfortunately in the room and unfortunately listening. You have learned not to flinch. Flinching moves the pins. The number, when it comes, is the whole point of the ordeal. That number is now your assignment. You will spend the week between this fitting and the show trying to become it, the way a student crams for an exam, except the exam is your body and the subject is subtraction. There is a particular indignity in being discussed as furniture while being handled as fabric, and the indignity is sharpest precisely because Aurelio does not mean it as cruelty. He is not cruel, he is absorbed, and you hold your tongue through all of it, arms out, breathing in installments, because the fitting is an audition even though no one calls it that. How you take the pins, how still you stand, how gracefully you absorb being spoken about in the third person, all of it is noticed. All of it feeds the quiet question of whether you are easy to work with, and easy to work with is half of whether you get booked again. So you are easy. You are the easiest surface Aurelio has ever pinned. It costs you something you do not itemize until later. He steps back at last, considers the tightened garment, removes the pins from his mouth one by one, and nods. A small, satisfied nod aimed at the dress and not at you. Pia notes the final number. You step down off the box, and the number steps down with you, riding home in your chest, and for the next 7 days it will set your table, or rather, unset it. The designer's muttered ideal, doing the work of an appetite you no longer trust yourself to have. You book the swimsuit issue, the most lucrative job in the business, and you discover it wants two things from your body that fight each other. It wants you starved, so the suit hangs right and the light catches your hip bones. It also wants you toned, athletic, glowing, like someone who eats well and swims every morning. So you are asked to be hungry and strong at the same time, to have muscle you have not fed and energy you do not have, and to arrange your empty body into the picture of health that will sell 1 million copies. The swimsuit issue is the golden job, the one every girl wants, because it pays like nothing else, and it makes careers, puts an unknown face on a newsstand in every gas station in America, and turns her into a household name overnight. So when the booking comes, you are thrilled, genuinely, and then you read the brief and the contradiction sits there on the page, unbothered by its own impossibility, asking your body to be two opposite things in the same photograph. Because the swimsuit reveals everything, there is nowhere to hide, no clever tailoring, no sample dress cut to flatter, just you and a few inches of nylon on a beach in blazing light, and so the thinness has to be total, the starvation dialed all the way up, the hip bones and the flat stomach and the gap the light travels through all delivered on schedule. That part you know how to do. That part is just the countdown, the peaking, the coffee and the cabbage, and the careful hungry days. You are an expert at the thin. But then the same brief wants glow. It wants you looking like the healthiest woman in America, bronzed and beaming and bursting with vitality, the very picture of a girl who spends her mornings swimming laps and her evenings eating grilled fish and sleeping 10 hours. It wants, in short, the exact opposite of what produced the hip bones, and it wants both at once, in one body, on one beach, and it does not consider this a strange request. Be starved, also glow. The brief sees no problem. And there is the fitness boom pressing on the whole thing from outside, because suddenly everyone is doing aerobics and the ideal has shifted. Thin is no longer sufficient. Now you must also be firm, defined, athletic, and so you find yourself trying to build and reveal muscle on a body you are actively refusing to feed, which is a contradiction at the level of biology. Muscle being a thing that requires food to exist, and you cannot argue with biology, you can only lose to it slowly while smiling on a beach. The photographer for the swimsuit issue is a cheerful, sunburnt man named Rusk who shouts encouragement across the sand and wants energy, wants you running into the surf, wants joy and vitality and life, and you give it to him on a stomach that has had a grapefruit and a cigarette, sprinting into cold water again and again for the picture of carefree health, your legs shaking with a fatigue the camera is specifically forbidden to capture. Rusk wants alive. You manufacture alive. The manufacturing is the job. You are the origin point of that feeling. You are also its victim. One newsstand over. You come out of the surf for the last shot, dripping and radiant and depleted past the edge of what depletion should allow, and Rusk lowers the camera and calls it perfect. And it is perfect. It is exactly the impossible thing they asked for. thin and toned and glowing all at once. You wrap yourself in a towel that does nothing against the cold that is already setting in, and you understand, standing on the golden sand, that you have just successfully been two things no body can actually be at the same time, and that the reward for it is that they will ask you to do it again next year. Everyone is doing aerobics now, because a woman named Jane Fonda put a workout on a videotape and the whole country bought it, and the industry has decided that thin is no longer enough and you must also be firm. So you go to the class in the leotard and the leg warmers and you jump and kick and go for the burn on a body that has had coffee and a cigarette today. The instructor shouts encouragement. Your heart pounds in a way that is not entirely about the exercise, and you keep going anyway, because stopping is not a thing you are allowed to do. The videotape changed everything. Before it, thin was the whole assignment, and you could deliver thin by simply not eating, which required nothing of you but endurance. Then Jane Fonda put her workout on a cassette, and the country bought it by the millions, and the ideal quietly rewrote itself. And now the body must not only be small but sculpted, toned, firm to the touch, which is a thing you cannot achieve by subtraction alone. You have to add the exercise on top of the starvation, effort stacked on emptiness. The class is a bright, mirrored room full of women in leotards, the colours of hard candy, and it moves fast, kick and grapevine and jumping jack, all of it driven by a pounding beat and an instructor named Corinne, who bounces at the front radiating a wellness you can only fake. Corinne eats, you can tell. Corinne has the specific unhurried energy of a woman who had breakfast, and she spends it generously, shouting, "Come on ladies, feel it, go for the burn." And the ladies feel it, and you feel something too. But it is not the burn Corinne means. What you feel is the specific terror of asking an empty body to sprint. The room tilts a little on the high kicks, so you keep moving, because stopping would mean standing still and feeling how little holds you upright. Corinne loves the burn, talks about the burn, chases the burn, and the burn for a fed body is a good, clean and muscular ache, the honest complaint of a muscle doing work and getting stronger. Your burn is a different animal. Your burn is the body scraping the bottom of a tank that was already empty, spending reserves it does not have. It does not build you stronger. It just carves you further down, because muscle grows from food and rest, and you are offering it neither. The cruelty of it is the doubling. It used to be that the punishment was one thing, the not eating, and you could at least be still and cold and hungry in peace. Now it is two, and they multiply, because exercise makes a body hungry and you cannot answer the hunger, and yet you go, because the ideal moved and you have to move with it or fall out of frame, because the bookers have started using the word toned, and the swimsuit clients want definition, and the whole culture has decided, via a videotape, that a woman should be both starved and strong, a contradiction it has no intention of resolving and every intention of demanding. So you kick and grapevine and gallop your frightened heart through another 45 minutes, keeping up with the fed women in the candy-coloured leotards, an empty tank revving in a room full of full ones. Corinne calls the cool down at last, and the room slows, and the women stretch and laugh and towel off and talk about where they are going for lunch, actual lunch, and you stretch alongside them and say you have a booking, which is true, and slip out before the lunch conversation can include you. Your heart is still going too fast in the elevator. You put a hand on your chest and feel it, and decide, in the way you decide about the cold and the dizziness, that it is fine, that it is just the burn, that it means the workout worked. You go for the burn. The burn goes for you. You walk into a go-see feeling fine about yourself, and 40 seconds later, you are back on the sidewalk because a client looked at you and decided you had gotten big. Big. You are a size that a doctor would frown at from the other direction, and a man who has never spoken to you has just sent you home over a body he glanced at across a room. You stand on the corner with your book under your arm and do the math on what you will and will not eat between now and the next appointment. It happened fast, which is part of the wound. He did not shout. He was almost gentle. He said they were looking for someone with a leaner line, thanked you, and returned to his papers, and the whole thing took less time than it takes to describe. Leaner line. You turn the phrase over on the sidewalk. It is a courtesy, a professional euphemism, the industry's polite way of saying the word it will not say, and the word it will not say is a word that would be, applied to your actual body, medically absurd. You are thin. Hi. You are thin by any standard a normal person carries around. You are thin enough that your mother cries a little when she sees you at Christmas. And Mr. Petrakis, glancing up, found the thinness insufficient and sent you back out into the afternoon to fix it. The particular cruelty of being sent home is that it is not about a mistake you made. If you had been late, or rude, or brought the wrong book, you could correct it, resolve to do better, hold the failure at arm's length. And the math starts immediately on the corner, before the sting has even faded, because the math is how you convert the humiliation into a plan, and the plan is the only thing that makes the humiliation survivable. What did you eat this week? Where did the leaner line go? What can come out between now and the next go-see, the next chance, the next florid, bored, and impatient man behind a wide desk, deciding in approximately 40 seconds whether your body has earned the afternoon? Every go-see is a job interview where the resume is your ribcage. You stand on the corner subtracting, and the subtracting feels, horribly, like taking control back. A woman passes you eating an ice cream cone in the ordinary sunshine, licking it without ceremony or guilt, a person for whom food is just food, and you watch her the way you watch all of them now, the eaters, the citizens of the country you move next to but never into, and you feel the old sour mix of longing and contempt, the contempt being mostly aimed, if you are honest, at yourself, for wanting the cone and for not being allowed the cone, and for having built a life where a cone is a moral event. Here is the thing the sidewalk teaches you that the fitting rooms and the sets do not, because the sidewalk is where the rejection lands with no one watching. The standard is not a standard. A standard has a top, a point of enough, a place where you arrive and are told, yes, this, hold here, this has no top. There is always a leaner line, always a florid man who wants less, always another half-inch to find. And the reason you can never win is not that you keep failing, it is that the game was designed without a finish line, so that you would keep playing and starving and coming back. You tuck the book tighter under your arm, you check the typed list for the next address, and you walk toward it already eating less in your mind, already planning the subtraction, carrying the word big that a stranger applied to your thin body as though it were true, because in the only country whose opinion pays your rent, it was. There is always someone assigned to look after you, a booker or a chaperone or a house mother, and the looking after includes a soft, constant surveillance of what you eat. She is kind. She means well. She also notices the roll you reach for at the client dinner and the second glass of wine and the dessert menu, and she will mention all of it later, gently, as guidance. You are a teenager far from home, and she is the closest thing to a parent here, and the parenting she offers is mostly about keeping you smaller than you naturally are. Her name is Dorothy, and Dorothy has been minding girls for the agency for 20 years, and she is, by every visible measure, good to you. She remembers your birthday, your mother's maiden name, and the precise gram weight of the roll you ate in March. She calls your actual mother, sometimes to reassure her. She sits up when you have a bad night, and she knows which clients to keep you away from. And in a city that mostly wants to use you, Dorothy genuinely, reliably cares, which is why the other thing Dorothy does is so hard to hold in the same hand. Because Dorothy also watches your plate. Not obviously, not with a clipboard, but constantly, a soft maternal radar that clocks every fork, and at the client dinner, when you reach for the breadbasket, her eyes flick down and back up so fast you would miss it if you had not learned to watch for it, and the reach becomes, under that quick glance, a small negotiation. You take the roll or you do not. Either way, Dorothy has noticed, and either way it will come up later, kindly, as a mother might mention a scarf left on the bus. The guidance always arrives wrapped in love, which is what makes it impossible to argue with. Dorothy does not say you are getting fat. Dorothy would never. The trap is that the person keeping you safe and the person keeping you thin are the same person, so that every act of protection carries a small dose of the poison, and you cannot reject the poison without rejecting the protection, and you need the protection. You are 17 and alone, and you need it badly. So you accept the whole package, the birthday and the reassuring calls and the flicked glance at the bread, because they come together, because Dorothy does not sell them separately, and the real damage is subtle, deeper than any single skipped roll. It is that Dorothy's watching becomes your watching, that her radar installs itself inside you, that after enough dinners you no longer need Dorothy to glance at your plate because you glance at it yourself, with her exact soft disapproval, having internalized the surveillance so completely that it runs without her. She was training a monitor. The monitor is now you. You will carry Dorothy's kind watching eyes in your own head for years after Dorothy herself is gone. There is a version of this arrangement that would simply be cruelty, and it would be easier, cleaner, easier to hate and leave. But this is not that. This is care and control braided so tight they cannot be told apart, delivered by a woman who loves you and is paid to keep you sellable, both at once, sincerely. Pure villains are easy to escape. It is the kind ones, the ones who mean it, who get all the way inside. Dorothy walks you home from the client dinner with her arm through yours, warm, steady, and certain, telling you how well you did, how they loved you, how proud she is, and you lean into her because she is the closest thing to home in 1,000 miles. And she is, and she mentions, lightly, almost as an afterthought, that maybe tomorrow a lighter lunch, just to feel your best, and you say yes, and mean it, and the two of you walk on through the cold like a mother and a daughter, which is exactly, painfully, what you are. You show up to a casting, and the girl already sitting in the waiting room is the one you share a bathroom with, and now the two of you are up for the same single booking, smiling at each other over the same portfolio-sized gap. You know her measurements. She knows yours. You know she skipped dinner last night and so did you, and you both know that whoever the client picks, it will come down to a body and a face and a fraction of an inch. You go home to the same apartment afterward and neither of you mentions who got it. It is Marisol this time, sitting in the waiting room in her good coat, and when you walk in, you both do the thing you have learned to do, the quick, warm, and practiced smile that says how funny, us, here, and underneath the smile, the quick, cold arithmetic that says, one of us walks out of here with the job, and it lives in our kitchen. You sit down next to her. You share a magazine. You are, genuinely, friends. You are also, right now, in this room, the only thing standing between each other and the booking, and both of those are true, and neither of you will say the second one out loud. The intimacy is what makes it strange. A stranger competitor you could dislike cleanly, could beat without complication, could lose to without it following you home. But this is Marisol, who taught you the water trick, who recites the Scarsdale diet like Grace, who held your hair back the night the DEXA trim made you sick, and you are sitting hip to hip on a hard bench waiting to find out which of your two bodies a man behind a door prefers, and then you are going to ride the same subway home and heat up the same cabbage soup. You know her numbers. That is the detail that sits wrong. Marisol is called in first. She comes out with her face carefully blank. She has learned the same blank you have. Neither blank tells the other anything. Then you go in, and you do your turn for the man behind the desk, and you come out with your own careful blank, and the two of you leave together, arm in arm even, chatting about nothing, two friends who have just spent an afternoon quietly wishing each other smaller, walking to the subway to go home to the shared bathroom and the shared pot and the shared silence about which of you the phone will ring for tomorrow. The friendship is real. The competition is real. They ride the same train. The genius of it, from the industry's side, is that it costs them nothing and disciplines you completely. They do not have to enforce the thinness, not really, not when they can simply put you and your best friend up for the same job, and let the fraction of an inch do the work. Let the two of you police each other by existing, each one's body a standing rebuke to the other's appetite. You will both eat a little less this week because of this afternoon. Neither of you will connect the two out loud. The phone rings the next morning, and it is for one of you, and the other one hears it, from the next room, and understands. And there is a small silence in the apartment that everyone respects and no one names. And then the kettle goes on, because someone has heard too, and the day starts. And you are still friends. You are still friends. You will always insist you are still friends. And you are, across a fraction of an inch that the two of you will spend the rest of your careers pretending is not there. You spend an afternoon assembling the thing your whole career rests on, a portfolio, a book of your best pictures that you will carry to every go-see and hand to every stranger who wants to judge you. You slide the tear sheets into plastic sleeves, the Vogue page, the catalogue work, the test shots, arranging yourself into the most sellable order. The book is you, edited. It goes everywhere you go, it opens on every desk, and it exists to make the argument that your body is worth booking, an argument you are required to keep winning with your body itself. The book is a heavy, black and battered leather thing with plastic sleeves inside, And building it is a genuine craft, a curation, because the order matters and the choices matter, and a strong book gets you seen, while a weak one gets you nothing. You spread the tear sheets across the apartment floor, the magazine pages and the catalogue clippings and the best of the test shots, and you kneel among them, arranging and rearranging, editing yourself into a sequence, deciding which version of your face leads and which closes and which of the awkward early ones gets quietly left out. Gloria helps, because she has built more books than anyone, and she has firm opinions about sequence. Open strong, she says, sliding your best cover to the front, and close strong, and never let two similar shots sit side by side, and cut anything you are not sure about, because doubt in the book becomes doubt on the client's face. She handles the sleeves with the care of a woman handling evidence, which is what the book is, evidence, the case for your continued employment, assembled by your own hands on the living room floor. The book is a flip chart of your own thinness, bound in leather. You notice, arranging them, how much of what the pictures show was manufactured the hard way, how this luminous frame came from a 12-hour day on a grapefruit, and that gorgeous hollow under the cheekbone came from the countdown before the Tunisia trip, and this whole radiant page is the visible surface of a hunger. The page will never mention. You know the cost of every image because you paid it, and now you are sliding the costs into plastic sleeves and calling them your best work, which they are, which is the awful part. The book has a purpose beyond memory, and the purpose is aggressive, forward-looking, a sales tool. It is not a scrapbook. The book raises the standard you then have to meet in the flesh. You built your own bar and now you have to keep clearing it. This is the quiet cruelty folded into the leather. The better your book, the higher the version of you it advertises, and the higher the advertised version, the more brutally the living version gets measured against it, so that a strong book is not a reward you get to rest on, but a debt you have to keep paying, in hunger, forever, because every client who opens it will look up expecting the girl in the best picture, and the girl in the best picture was starving, and so, to keep matching her, must you. You slide the last sheet into the last sleeve and close the cover, and the book is done. Strong, sequenced, opening on your best and closing on your best, a beautiful, persuasive object that you will carry into every room for the next several years. Gloria nods, approving the final order. You lift it, and it is heavier than it looks, and you understand that you will be carrying it and being weighed against it and starving to keep deserving it, for as long as anyone is still willing to open it on a desk. Your period stops, and the alarming part is that nobody around you finds it alarming. A body starved past a certain point shuts down the systems it cannot afford, and this is one of the first to go, and in your world it is treated less like a warning and more like a convenience. No one sits you down, no one sends you to a doctor. The other girls nod when you mention it, the way you might nod at a shared weather report, because it has happened to most of them too, and it has come to seem like simply part of the job. It goes quietly, without announcement, a thing you notice mostly by its absence, by the box of supplies under the bathroom sink that stops needing to be replaced. When you mention it to Gloria, she does not look up from her coffee. "Oh, that," she says. "Mine went 2 years ago," and she says it the way you might say your knee clicks in the cold, a minor bodily footnote, filed and forgotten. Marisol's is gone too. Kiki cannot remember the last time she thought about it. It is, in this apartment, less a symptom than a shared condition of residence, like the bad radiator and the ancient takeout container, a thing everyone has and no one treats. It is the one bodily function more reliable than the apartment plumbing, right up until it is gone. And here is where the convenience creeps in, quiet and shameful, because a part of you, the part that has been fully colonized by the arithmetic, receives the news as good. One less thing, one less complication on a shoot, one less week of feeling swollen, one less variable in the endless project of keeping the body small, obedient, and manageable. The starvation has switched off a function of your body and some ruined accountant inside you has marked it in the profit column, and you know that is wrong. You know it in your bones, which is fitting, because your bones are in on it too. Because the bones are the other thing, the part no one mentions, the slow, quiet cost being run up in the dark. You cannot see it, you cannot feel it, not yet. It photographs beautifully, this hollowing. That is the whole problem. What should happen, in a sane arrangement, is that a girl whose body has begun shutting down its systems would be taken gently by the arm to a doctor, and fed, and rested, and told the truth. What happens instead is nothing, is a nod over coffee, is the box under the sink going unbought, because to treat it as the emergency it is would mean naming the cause, and the cause is the entire business, and you cannot send the entire business to a doctor. So the emergency gets reclassified as a quirk, and the quirk gets shared like a recipe, and the girls compare notes on it the way they compare notes on everything, deadpan, matter of fact, chillingly calm. The doctors you do not see would have a word for this, a clinical name, and there are researchers even now beginning to understand what starvation does to a young woman's body in exactly these ways. But that understanding lives in journals you will never read, in a medical world that does not intersect with a fitting room. And inside the apartment there is no word for it at all, only the box that stops being bought, and the shrug that greets the news, and the small awful relief of one less thing to manage. You put the calendar down, you do not count backward again, because there is no point, because the answer will keep being the same and the answer has been received, by everyone, as fine. The radiator knocks twice, like a landlord who disapproves. The coffee goes cold in the pot. Somewhere under your skin the scaffolding gives up another small measure of itself, silently, and the surface stays smooth and sharp and exactly right, and you go to work, camera ready, a convenient emergency and a good coat. The shoot wraps and everyone spills into the night, into the club with the velvet rope and the crowd and the music, and here the same things that get you through a workday are handed around like party favours. Studio 54 does not care that you have a cool time. The people pressing things into your hand mean it as generosity, as fun, as belonging, and the line between the drug that kills your appetite on set and the drug that keeps you dancing at 3 a.m. has quietly disappeared. You have a booking in 5 hours. You go anyway. The club is a world that runs on the opposite schedule from your body and welcomes you in any way. There is the velvet rope, and the doorman who knows your face, and the sudden warm roar of it as you step inside. The music you feel in your sternum, the lights swinging, the beautiful ruined crowd of people who also did not go home. You came straight from the set, still half in the day's makeup, and the club does not mind. The club prefers it. The club runs on exactly the kind of person who cannot stop. And here the thing from the back of the studio, the little insider favour, is simply everywhere, out in the open, passed hand to hand as hospitality, and no one calls it a diet tool now because now it is a party, but it is the same substance doing a related job, and your body cannot tell the difference between the line that got you through hour 18 of the shoot and the line that gets you through hour 2 of the night. The context changed. The chemistry did not. Your appetite, either way, disappears, which the night treats as freedom and your body treats as one more meal missed. You run into people you know, other models, the crew from today, a photographer named Sasha who is holding court by the bar and who waves you over and presses a glass into your hand you did not order. Sasha is generous the way the night is generous, expansively, thoughtlessly, and Sasha's generosity includes all the things a person offers at 3 a.m, and none of it comes with a warning. All of it comes with a smile and an arm around the shoulder and the warm insistence that you belong here, with us, awake. The cruel elegance of it is how the two economies feed each other. You starve all day to work, and the starving leaves you wired and depleted and strange, and the strangeness makes the night's chemistry feel less like a choice than a continuation, and the night's chemistry keeps you from eating, which keeps you thin, which keeps you working, which starts the whole loop again 5 hours later under the lights. The set and the club are not opposites. They are the two halves of a single machine, and you live inside it, running from one to the other, never quite landing. The booking is in 5 hours. You know this. What the night takes is not only the sleep, though it takes that. It is that the night erases the last boundary, the one between the substances you use to work and the substances you use to escape the work. And once that boundary is gone, there is no clean edge anywhere, no line between the professional and the personal ruin, just one continuous chemical haze that photographs, somehow, as glamour. The papers will call it decadence. From inside, it does not feel like decadence. It feels like the only room that is still open. You stay too long. You always stay too long. The machine has both halves of you now. The night hands you back to the day, and the day will hand you back to the night. There are moments when you have to be seen eating. At a lunch, in front of a client, at a table, where not eating would be its own kind of statement, and so you have developed a small performance around a very small amount of food. You take one almond, you take a leaf of something, You move the rest around the plate, you talk brightly, you let the waiter clear a meal you did not touch. The goal is to look like a woman who simply is not very hungry, rather than a woman who has made not eating into a profession. The performance has rules, refined over dozens of lunches, and the first rule is that you must eat something visibly, because eating nothing at all draws exactly the attention you are trying to avoid. So you take the almond, you choose it with apparent carelessness from the little dish, you eat it slowly, you make a small, satisfied sound, and you have now, in the eyes of the table, eaten. You are a woman who eats. The question is closed. One almond, deployed correctly, can cover an entire meal. The fork is your main instrument, and you have become a virtuoso of the idle fork, the fork that is always in motion and never quite arrives. You cut things into smaller things. You gather a little architecture of salad to one side and admire it. The talking is the cover for all of it. The charm is not separate from the not eating. The charm is how you get away with the not eating. Today it is a lunch with a cosmetics client, a pleasant woman named Mrs. Farrow who is deciding whether your face belongs on a compact, and Mrs. Farrow orders generously and encourages you to do the same. And here is the tightrope, because you cannot refuse. Refusing is a statement, and you cannot actually eat it. Eating it is not in the plan, so you order something you can push around, and you take your almond, and you tell Mrs. Farrow a very good story about Paris. And Mrs. Farrow laughs and forgets to notice that you have eaten a single nut in 90 minutes. The strangest part is how hungry you are while you do it, how the performance happens on top of a real roaring appetite, the food right there, warm, fragrant, and permitted, and you sitting over it starving and spinning stories, denying yourself the very thing you are pretending to enjoy. It is a magic trick performed against your own body, the plate full, the stomach empty, the audience convinced, and the only person who knows the trick is you, the only one who can feel the hunger under the charm, holding a green bean like a wand. And you are good at it, which is its own small sorrow, because being good at it means you have done it 1,000 times, means the ease is earned, means somewhere along the way pretending to eat became a genuine skill you possess, a thing you could put on no resume but have mastered more completely than most people master anything. You can sit at a loaded table for 2 hours, be the most delightful person there, and consume almost nothing, and leave with the booking and an empty stomach and a reputation as a woman with a wonderful light appetite. Mrs. Farrow signs, "The lunch is a triumph." The waiter clears your plate, still arranged, still full, its little architecture of untouched salad intact, and he does not comment, because waiters in this part of the city have cleared 1,000 such plates and know exactly what they are looking at. You thank Mrs. Farrow warmly, sincerely, and you walk out into the afternoon having won the job and eaten one almond, and the hunger, which waited politely through the whole performance, steps forward now that the audience is gone, and reminds you, quietly, that it is still here, and still owed. You are required to go to the client dinner, and you are required to be charming there, and you are required to do both across a table loaded with food you are not going to allow yourself to have. This is the hardest kind of hungry, the social kind, where the smell of the bread is right there and the conversation needs your attention and your booker's eyes are on your plate. So you drink water, you laugh at the right moments, you accept a coffee, and you count the hours until you can go home to the apartment and be honestly, privately empty. The dinner is not optional. That is the first cruelty. The restaurant is the kind that brings bread before you ask, a warm, crusty and fragrant loaf in a napkin, steam rising off it when it is torn, butter beside it going soft in a little dish, and the bread arrives and sits in the center of the table radiating warmth and yeast and everything you want, and the client tears into it happily, and you leave it alone. And leaving it alone while it steams 18 inches from your hand is a discipline the client will never know. He is watching you perform. The smell is the ambush. No performance fully defends against. You can control the fork, control the face, control the conversation, but you cannot control your own nose. And the smell of the bread and the garlic and the meat coming past on trays reaches into a part of you that has no manners and no career and only wants, plainly and enormously, to eat. Your mouth waters. Your stomach, which you have trained to stay quiet, forgets its training and speaks up, and you cover the sound with a laugh and reach for the water. Again, always the water. You have become, over the years, a sommelier of tap water. And your booker is there. Tonight it is Dorothy. warm and watchful at the far end of the table, and Dorothy's presence adds a second layer to the ordeal, because now you are not only resisting the food, you are resisting it correctly, gracefully, in a way that will not draw Dorothy's gentle notice, and so you must eat little enough to stay sellable but visibly enough to seem normal, threading the needle Dorothy is holding, all while charming a client who has no idea any needle exists. The social hunger is worse than the private kind, and you have thought about why, and it is this. When you are hungry alone in the apartment, the hunger is at least honest, a straight line between you and your empty stomach, uncomplicated. But here, the hunger has to be hidden and performed against at the same time, has to be denied, while surrounded by its own satisfaction, has to sit at a feast pretending to be a guest when it is really the only thing at the table not being fed. Everyone else is dining. You are performing dining. The gap between the two is where you live all night. So you deploy everything you have. You drink water until you slosh. You accept the coffee at the end and cradle it for its warmth and its permission. You are wonderful, genuinely wonderful. The client is delighted. The booking is secured. The evening is by every external measure a triumph. And it costs you 3 hours of sitting inside a hunger with no exit, being charming on top of it, until your face aches from the smiling and your stomach aches from the wanting, and the two aches merge into one long endurance you are not allowed to show. You are starving. You have been starving for hours at a table full of food. And now, finally, in the privacy of the dark subway car, you are allowed to simply be empty, which after the dinner feels almost like rest. You sit in the makeup chair at dawn, and this is where you assemble the person the day needs, the bright one, the effortless one, the one who is delighted to be here. Underneath the powder is a body that has not eaten and did not sleep and is cold in a warm room, and none of that is allowed to show. The makeup artist works on your face and you work on your mood, building the cheerfulness from nothing the way you build everything here from nothing. By the time the chair spins toward the mirror, the tired, hungry girl is gone. The chair is a station, and the station has a ritual, and the ritual begins with you arriving as the raw material, grey and hollow-eyed from another 2-hour night, and ends with you leaving as the product, luminous, awake, and delighted. In between sits Dell, the same Dell from the window, brushes in hand, and Dell begins the long, patient work of painting a good night's sleep onto a face that did not get one, laying down the colour and the light where your body failed to provide them. Dell knows exactly what he is covering. He has seen your actual face at dawn 100 times, the true one, the depleted one, and he does not comment on it. He simply corrects it, dabbing away the grey under your eyes, warming the skin, the starvation left cold and bluish, drawing a fullness back into the hollows that the countdown carved out. He is an honest man doing a dishonest job, restoring to your face, with pigment, the health your body is not permitted to actually have. The glow goes on with a brush. It is the hardest labour of the morning and it leaves no visible trace. You are building a personality the way you build a peak, deliberately, on empty, because the client is paying for effervescence, and effervescence is not a thing your actual state can supply. The cheerfulness has to be total and it has to be convincing, because a photographer can feel a flat mood through a lens the way a dog can feel fear, and a girl who is merely going through the motions produces flat dead pictures no matter how perfect her face. The chair is where the two lies get married, the painted face and the summoned mood. The outside Dell builds and the inside you build, fusing into a single convincing person who does not exist anywhere but here, on camera, for hire. She is radiant. She is thrilled to be up at dawn. She is warm and easy and full of light, and she is completely fabricated, assembled fresh each morning in this chair from a grey cold girl and a set of brushes and an act of will, and she will hold together exactly as long as the money requires and not 1 minute longer. And then Dell steps back and turns the chair and you face the mirror, and there she is, the finished one, looking back at you with your own eyes and none of your own exhaustion, and the transformation is genuinely startling every time. The gap between what sat down and what stands up. You did that. Dell did that. The two of you, Brush and Will, took a depleted girl and built a luminous woman in 90 minutes. And the fact that she is not real does not make her any less effective, because the camera cannot tell, and the camera is the only one whose opinion is being paid for. You rise from the chair as her, the bright one, the effortless one, and you carry her out onto the set and give her to Vaughn and the lights, and she performs beautifully, because she was built to, and only you know that somewhere inside her, holding very still, is the girl who sat down, hungry and cold and grey, waiting for the day to end so she can have her own face back. You see the finished pictures weeks later, and a strange thing has happened, which is that the parts of you the starving produced have been quietly softened by a stranger with an airbrush. The bones you worked to reveal are still there, but the hollows are filled, the shadows are smoothed, the marks are gone. The industry wants your body sharp enough to photograph, and then reaches in afterward to correct the evidence of how sharp you made it. You starved to look like the picture, and then the picture was edited to look survivable. Both of those things are true at once. The retoucher is a man named Klaus who works in a quiet room over a light table with a set of fine brushes and airbrushes and a patience that borders on the monastic, and an airbrush that can talk a skeleton back into a woman. Klaus receives the transparencies of you and goes over them inch by inch, correcting. He is the last hand to touch you before the world sees you, and he touches only the film, never the girl. But what he does to the film is a kind of comment on the girl, a quiet after-the-fact mercy applied to a body that was pushed too far to photograph cleanly, because the starvation, past a certain point, starts to show in ways even the client does not want. The hollows under the eyes go from elegant to alarming. A collarbone stops reading as chic and starts reading as skeletal. The little marks appear, the ones the countdown and the chemistry leave behind, and none of that sells the dress. And so Klaus is employed to walk it all back on the transparency, to fill and smooth and soften until the image lands in the exact narrow band between not thin enough and too obviously starving. And there is the whole contradiction, sitting on Klaus's light table under his careful brush. The industry demanded the sharpness. The bookers and the clients and the sample size and the index card all pushed you down to the edge, where the bones come up and the shadows deepen, wanted it, required it, sent you home when you failed to deliver it. And then, having gotten exactly what it demanded, the industry hands the result to Klaus to be quietly corrected, because the truthful photograph of what it asked for is more than it can comfortably print. You starved to become the picture, and now the picture is being edited to look like a person who did not have to starve. What Klaus removes is the receipt. The reader will never know Klaus exists. That is the point of Klaus. He is the industry erasing its own fingerprints, one transparency at a time. And the reader, seeing the corrected image, will measure herself against a body that is doubly false and find herself doubly wanting, chasing a thinness that even the starving model did not actually possess on film, because the film was fixed. The standard was never real. It was manufactured on Klaus's light table out of a girl who suffered for it and a brush that hid the suffering, and it is sent out into the world to make millions of other women feel they have failed at being something that was airbrushed into existence and never lived at all. You look at the finished page, your own face on it, softened, perfected, and untrue, and you feel the strangest vertigo, because you know the girl who posed and you know the cost she paid, and you can see, right here in print, that cost being gently, expertly denied. You are on the cover. You look wonderful. You look like a woman who has never been hungry a day in her life, and you got there by being hungry every day. And Klaus, in his quiet room, made sure no one would ever be able to tell. A new girl arrives at the agency, 16, fresh off a plane from somewhere, and the room turns toward her the way a room turns toward a window when the light changes, and you feel yourself become older in an instant. You are 22. In any other life, that is the beginning of everything. Here it is, a number bookers have started to notice, and the arrival of someone younger and hungrier and not yet tired is a message you receive clearly without anyone saying a word. The clock in this business runs fast, and it has started to run on you. She stands in the agency reception looking lost and luminous, and you watch the bookers rearrange themselves around her arrival, and you feel it land. You are 22. You say it to yourself and it sounds absurd, because 22 is young, 22 is barely begun, 22 is a person who in any sane field would be told she has decades ahead. But this is not a sane field, and in this field 22 is a number that has started appearing in sentences that also contain the word still, as in still working, still booking, still holding up, and the word still is the sound of a door beginning, very slowly, to close. At 22 you have quietly been reclassified as vintage. What anarchy has that you have spent is not beauty, exactly, because you are still beautiful. The mirror confirms it, Dell confirms it, the book confirms it. What she has is that her beauty is free and yours has become expensive. Hers costs her nothing yet. No countdown, no cabbage soup, no hollow to be filled by Klaus. She simply is thin, bright, and young. Yours now requires the whole apparatus. The starving and the smoking and the chemistry and the retouching, an entire industry of maintenance to produce what she produces by walking through the door. And the bookers can do the math even when they are being kind, because the math is their job. The cruelty specific to this moment is that you cannot compete your way out of it, because the thing Anneke has is time, and time is the one measurement you cannot starve off or paint on or airbrush away. You can be thinner than her, you can out-diet her, you can lose another half-inch you do not have, and it will not matter, because she will still be 16, and you will still be 22, and the only currency that counts here is the one you are spending simply by being alive another year. You are being aged out by the calendar, and the calendar does not negotiate. And you look at Anneke, 16 and lost and luminous in her travel clothes, and you do not hate her. That is the thing. You cannot hate her, because she is you 3 years ago, stepping off the same plane into the same reception to have the same bright, brief moment before the same clock starts running on her too. She does not know yet. No one will tell her. In 3 years, another girl will step off another plane, and Anneke will feel exactly what you are feeling now, and the machine will have used them both and moved on. Still hungry, always 16, someone introduces you, and you are warm to her, genuinely. You remember being her too well to be anything else, and you tell her a thing or two that will help, and she looks at you with grateful eyes that have no idea you are the future she is about to have. Then the bookers call her over, and she goes, "Luminous," and you gather your book, your beautiful, expensive book, and you go to your go-sees, 22 years old, still working, still booking, still holding up, for now. Your face is on the cover of a magazine this month, and if you turn past your own photograph and into the pages behind it, you will find the diet the magazine wants its readers to try, printed a few pages from the body it wants them to want. You are the promise and the instruction at the same time. Nobody at the magazine finds this strange. The reader is told to eat less so she can look more like you, and you are not eating at all so you can look like the cover, and the whole loop closes on itself and keeps selling. This month it is a 2-week plan with a chart, promising the reader she can lose the weight and look, the copy all but says it, look like the woman on the cover. The woman on the cover is you. You did not do the 2-week plan. You did something much worse and the magazine would never print it. The loop is perfect and closed and you can trace the whole circle standing there on the corner. The magazine puts your starved body on the cover as the thing to want. The reader wants it. The magazine sells her, a few pages later, the diet that promises to get her there. She does the diet. She does not get there because there is not a real place, because your body on the cover was produced by means no diet chart contains and then corrected by Klaus on his light table. So she fails, and feels the failure, and buys next month's issue with next month's diet, hoping, and you are the bait in it, which is a strange thing to hold while standing at Sal's newsstand looking at yourself. Not the villain, not the beneficiary really, the bait, the shining lure at the front of the trap, the worm the whole machine dangles and never quite lets anyone catch, the image that makes the whole mechanism go. The magazine does not care about your health and it does not care about the readers. It cares about the gap between them, the permanent, unbridgeable distance between the reader's real body and your unreal one, because that gap is where the diets and the creams and the next issue and the one after that all get sold. The reader thinks you are the proof that it can be done. That is the lie the cover tells her, that here is a woman who achieved the body, so the body is achievable, so buy the plan and achieve it too. But you are not proof it can be done. You are proof of what it costs, hidden, the grey, exhausted, and starving reality behind the luminous corrected face. And if the reader could see the actual you, cold and hollow and eating one almond at a business lunch, she would not want the plan, she would want to call someone. The cover exists precisely to make sure she never sees that. The cover is the alibi, and here is the part that turns in you, standing on the corner. Somewhere a girl the reader's age is looking at this same cover, your cover, the way you once looked at the covers before you, and deciding that this is what a woman should be, and beginning, quietly, the long subtraction that will bring her to an apartment like yours, and a countdown like yours, and a box behind the aspirin like yours. You are not just the bait for the diet on page 40, you are the recruitment poster for the whole machine, and you are holding your own recruitment poster in your hands. You close the magazine, Your face smiles up from the cover, luminous, effortless. A woman who has clearly never been hungry, positioned 3 pages from the instructions for becoming her that will not work. You do not. You put the magazine in your bag and you go to work. The promise and the instruction. Walking. You were dropped, quietly, for gaining, and now there is a chance to come back if you can get the body back first, so you set about re-losing what a normal person would call nothing at all. This is the cruelest math in the business, the second time down, when the thing that got you signed in the first place has to be produced again on demand, faster and harder than before. You know exactly how to do it because you have done it. You know exactly what it costs because you have paid it. You start again anyway, because the alternative is to disappear. The gaining that got you dropped was, of course, barely anything. A handful of pounds that arrived when your body, exhausted past its limit, finally clawed a little of itself back while you were not vigilant, a small biological rebellion. The starved animal grabbing a few mouthfuls before the guard returned. Any doctor would have called it recovery. The agency called it a problem. And so the pounds your body fought to reclaim have to be surrendered again. And this time your body knows the drill and resists, because it has been here before and it did not enjoy it. Your body has been through this once already and it has, frankly, developed a grudge. That is the part no one warns you about, that the second time is harder than the first. The first time you lost the weight, your body was naive, went along with it, gave the pounds up without quite understanding the game. But a body that has been starved once and clawed back and is now being starved again has learned something, has grown wary, holds on tighter, drops the weight slower and more grudgingly, so that the comeback demands more severity than the debut ever did, a deeper cut to reach a shallower gain. You know the whole method by heart. That is the grim advantage you bring to it. There are exactly 3 recognized ways to lose a pound you have already lost, and you have used all of them. You do not have to learn the countdown or discover the tricks or find the drugstore. You have all of it, filed and ready, the accumulated expertise of years, and you deploy it now with the efficiency of a professional returning to a familiar job. The coffee, the cigarettes, the cabbage, the box behind the aspirin, the water trick, the almond performance, all of it, brought back online at once, a whole starving infrastructure you had never really dismantled, only mothballed. And Gloria helps, the veteran of the 2nd and 3rd and 4th times down who has come back more times than she can count. And she does not tell you it is fine and she does not tell you to stop. She simply fills the kettle, because that is what Gloria does, and sits with you through the worst of it, the 2 of you losing the weight in the same kitchen where you have lost it so many times before, comrades in a war you both suspect cannot be won, and neither of you can afford to leave. The cruelty compounds, because the comeback is not just physically harder, it is aimed at a smaller prize. When you started, you were losing weight toward a whole future, a career opening up, everything ahead. You choose the countdown. You always choose the countdown. The weight starts to come off, grudgingly, the way it does now, and the phone does not ring yet, but it might, and you hold on to the might, and Gloria fills the kettle again, and the 2 of you sit in the kitchen you have starved in for years, doing it once more, older, wiser, and defeated, chasing a body you already proved you could not keep, because keeping it was never the deal. The deal was always just to keep chasing it, forever, until the day you finally stop and the frame closes without you. A singer everyone knows dies, and the word attached to her death is anorexia, and for one strange morning the thing your entire industry runs on is being discussed on the news as a fatal illness. Karen Carpenter is 32. You are on a set when you hear, and the set goes quiet for a moment, and then does not talk about it, because to talk about it honestly would be to talk about the coffee and the cigarettes and the card with your measurements on it. So the conversation closes, the shoot resumes, and you go back to being the picture of health. The radio in the corner of the studio is where it comes from. A news break between songs, the announcer's voice saying her name and then the word anorexia, said plainly on the public airwaves, in a way you have almost never heard it said. And for a moment the whole set hears it together, the crew and the stylists and the 4 girls waiting by the lights, all of you holding still around the small tinny voice explaining that a beloved singer has died of not eating. Karen Carpenter is 32, which lands strangely in a room full of people who deal in the currency of thinness, because here is thinness followed all the way to its end. Here is the word the magazines never print attached to an actual death with an actual age, and the number 32, sits there in the studio being quietly done in everyone's head, the arithmetic of it, and the years she did not get. And the set goes quiet, genuinely quiet, the particular silence of a room full of people who have all just been shown, for one unguarded second, the far end of the road they are on. Because everyone here knows. The stylist who tightens the samples knows. The booker who reads the cards knows. The four girls by the lights, cold, hungry, and afraid, know most of all. And for a moment the radio has said out loud the thing the whole apparatus exists to not say, and no one can look at anyone. And then, and this is the part that stays with you, the moment closes. Someone turns the radio down or turns it to music, and the photographer claps his hands and calls the girls back to the marks, and the machinery of the day starts up again over the top of the silence, because to let the silence continue, to actually talk about what the radio just said, would be to talk about this room, this shoot, these girls, this card, and that is the one conversation the room cannot have and keep functioning. So it does not have it. It gets back to work. You take your mark. You find the manufactured mood and give the camera the picture of health it is paying for, minutes after a radio told the whole set that the picture of health can be a fatal illness wearing good makeup. What the morning gives you is not a revelation. Exactly. Because you already knew. You have known in your bones and your stopped body and your brittle scaffolding for a long time. What it gives you is a moment of the outside world naming it. One clear public morning where the thing was called by its real name on the radio, and then the industry closing back over the naming like water over a dropped stone, smooth again in seconds, as if nothing had been said. You watched it happen. You helped it happen. You got back on your mark, the shoot finishes late, the radio has long since gone back to music. You ride home in the dark, and Karen Carpenter's name is still somewhere in the day behind you, 32, and you think about it, and then you make yourself stop thinking about it. The way you make yourself stop thinking about the cold and the dizziness and the box behind the aspirin, filing it under later, under not me, for someone whose name you will remember and whose warning you will not take. The taste is changing, and you can feel it changing the way you feel weather coming, because the bookers have started using a new word, healthy, and meaning by it a body that is not yours. The industry that wanted you fragile now wants someone who looks like she eats, who looks strong, brunette, robust, glowing. It is a kinder standard, and it arrives too late for you, because you spent your youth becoming the old one. The girls rising now will be photographed looking well, and you will watch it happen from just outside the frame you used to be the center of. The bookers say the word approvingly now. Healthy. We want healthy. And they say it as though it were a fresh idea, as though the thing they spent a decade demanding had been someone else's fault. They get to look fed. You spent your best years making sure you never did. The kinder rule arrived one girl too late, and the girl is you. There is a bitterness in the timing that you turn over on the walk home. Not that the standard got better. The standard getting better is good, is right, is a mercy for every girl who comes after. The bitterness is that it got better exactly one beat past your usefulness, so that you paid the full price of the cruel version and received none of the benefit of the kind one, like a soldier in the last week of a war that ends the day after she is hit. The reprieve is real. It is simply not addressed to you, and the maddening part, the part that sits in your chest at Sal's newsstand, is that your body cannot make the turn even if the bookers would let it. You cannot suddenly look healthy on command, cannot manufacture robust and glowing out of a decade of starvation and cigarettes and stopped systems and a scaffolding quietly hollowed from the inside. The new look requires an actual reservoir of health, and you spent yours, drew it all down to the last, and there is no countdown that produces fullness, no diet that manufactures glow, no version of the discipline you are expert in that can make a depleted body read as a thriving one. So you watch it happen from the edge, from just outside the frame, and it is a strange vantage, having been the centre of the thing and now standing at its rim observing the changing of the guard. The go sees slow, the bookings thin. The phone, which used to ring like it owed you money, takes a sudden vow of silence. Nobody fires you, that is not how it works. You are simply called less and less until the calling stops being a thing you can count on, and the new faces going up in your place are sun-warmed and sturdy and look like they eat, which is the one look you rehearsed your entire career never to have. And here is what you carry out of it, walking home past the newsstand for maybe the last time as a working model, the strange doubled knowledge of having been both the envy and the casualty of the same 10 years. You were the face a million women measured themselves against and failed to match. You were also the girl who starved and smoked and stopped and hollowed to make that face, and paid for it in years and bones and a body that will never quite be sound again. Both of those are you. They always were. The cover never showed the second one, and the second one is the one walking home. The lights come on in the shop windows. The city fills with people going home to dinners. You walk among them, thin, tired, 20-something. A woman who spent her youth being dangerously beautiful for a camera that has already turned, gently, to look at someone else. So there you have it. You spent the night waking at 4 a.m. to a breakfast of coffee and one determined cigarette, being measured on an index card by a woman with a tape around her neck, losing half an inch you could not find with a map, and performing radiant good health for 12 hours on a grapefruit and pure ambition. You bought your appetite in a caramel at the drugstore. You fainted elegantly and called it a casual lean. You ate a single almond at a table full of food and charmed everyone into believing it was a meal. And underneath all the glamour were real young women, most of them still teenagers, far from home in a cold, enormous city, doing genuinely brutal things to their own bodies because the entire world around them agreed, quietly, that this was simply the price of the pictures. They were not vain. They were not weak. They were 16 and 19 and 22, handed a photocopied diet and a lie about what was addictive, and told that half an inch stood between them and everything. It is strange to think how much of that beautiful decade was built on hunger, how the brightest faces on every newsstand were the coldest, emptiest people in the room. The camera never once caught it. That was the whole job. Thank you for drifting through this hungry little history with me tonight. You have made it all the way to the quiet end, and there is nothing left to do now but rest. So let your hands unclench, let your shoulders come down from your ears. Let the whole day and the whole strange cold decade we just walked through go soft and far away. You do not have to be sharp for anyone tonight. You do not have to fit anything. You can take up exactly as much room as you please, warm and heavy and wonderfully unmeasured, sinking down into a bed that asks nothing of you at all. Close your eyes. Let your breathing go slow. Sleep well.